Hi, I'm Maddie Paul, joined by our reporter Ashley Opina and Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, answering some more of our questions on both national and state policies and prosecutions. I'm going to turn it over to Ashley with our first question.
Yes, thank you, Maddie. So Donald Trump is the first former president in U.S. history to be criminally convicted. If he were to be elected as president, could he, pardon himself?
Well, he may not need to, because the two federal cases, as you know, one of them has been dismissed by Judge Eileen Cannon down in Florida, and the other one pending in D.C. Those cases are prosecuted by the U.S. attorney. If those cases are not resolved by the time he's the next president, if that happens, he could just have the U.S. attorney dismiss those cases. Now he couldn't do that in the state cases. He also has a New York conviction for 34 counts, and he also has a pending case in Georgia. Those cases are state cases, and he wouldn't have any power over those, except he might be able to make a motion to the court. While I'm the president, I need to worry about being the president, and you need to just delay any sentencing or anything until that's over.
Thank you for that answer. I'm going to bring it now over to our state laws. One that recently passed back in March, something that we covered a lot over at KEYC, was the use of school resource officers.
Right.
And the law being defined as it is now, can you just explain and maybe reiterate for our audience and our families who are watching what permits a force or a use of force in schools now under this law?
Well, if a student is creating a threat to other students or to the officer or anybody there, or if the officer needs to subdue the student because the student is creating some other danger, say the student is a threat to property, the officers can restrain the student to do that. If the student struggles, then that's resisting arrest and obstruction. They can, and that would be basis to use force for a lawful arrest. So the officers really, they can enforce safety rules at the school, much like, the same way as they could before. Here's what they can't do. Say the student disobeys an order, move out of the lunchroom. The officer cannot go in there and restrain the student because they disobeyed a school rule. It has to be to protect somebody, protect property, protect others, or to effect a lawful arrest or something like that. But just to enforce a school rule, that discipline would rest in the hands of school personnel, not the SRO. But I just want to say thank you to our SROs. They do a very important job. A lot of them are beloved in the schools and do a great job. And normally these rules that were passed, don't have to be employed on most SROs, because most SROs are there to help the school be a safe environment. But at my office, we issue what they call an opinion, Attorney General opinion. It's not just my off-the-cuff opinion. It's a legally binding legal opinion written by our solicitor, approved by me. And what we did is clarified that SROs were not going to find themselves in trouble because they were doing their job, right? And so we were happy to be able to give that guidance, and glad that the law was changed so that we can have a safe school.
Thank you for that response. As we're talking about officers, Ashley?
Yes, so closer to home, we tragically lost 18-year-old Olivia Flores in an accident.
Yeah, it's very sad.
Yes, it is. So State Trooper Shane Roper was charged for her death. How does something like this happen, and how can we as a state, prevent these instances from happening, especially at the hands of law enforcement?
Well, let me just say, and I know I don't have to say this, but I'll say it because it's important for people to remember. Most officers do the right thing, are trying to do the right thing, and they do the right thing. But when they don't, nobody's above the law, except maybe Donald Trump. But nobody's above the law, and everyone has to obey the law. And so, the prosecutor in Olmsted made a decision that they would make a charging decision. Because I don't know all the facts of the case, I don't want to get into who's right, who's wrong, but I will say that in a democratic society where we have the rule of law, no one gets to break the law, and everyone has to obey it, and no matter what position they may hold. And so that's how we end up in this situation. And I don't want to speak specifically about this case, but sometimes, members of law enforcement are trained to do the right thing, but they don't do it. I mean, sometimes people don't do what they're told to do, trained to do, and supposed to do. It's rare, but it does happen, and when it does, that's when the criminal law comes into play.
Absolutely, thank you.
Do you think with this case in particular too, I mean, we've been talking about political violence before with what's going on with Trump, and our state has been recognized before as a state with severe police violence. Do you think that this case goes in hand with something like that?
Well, let me tell you, I would be among the first to say that in the city of Minneapolis, it is important that we work to improve the relationship between police and community. But there are literally hundreds of communities in Minnesota, where they don't have any problems between the police and the community. It just really is not a one-size-fits-all situation, right? I've been to many communities where the relationship is great, everyone gets along well, the officers know the people who they are protecting, and they take their job extremely seriously. So I would not be the one to say that this tragic incident somehow is in line with other things that like happened with George Floyd, for example, because I think the two are not there. First of all, I don't know enough facts about this case, but I would also say that I just wouldn't lump them together. But I also don't want to, I also want to be clear, the unique circumstances in Minneapolis do call for a renewed effort to improve relationship between police and community. And some good things have happened. I mean, they've changed in Minneapolis. They now have a Department of Public Safety, and the police department is part of that, along with, youth violence prevention, along with 911, along with the health department, and so that they can coordinate better. And we have a chief of police, Brian O'Hara, who's doing a wonderful job making sure things are getting better every day. So even in Minneapolis, things are improving, I believe, but I don't think that this incident is necessarily in keeping with the trends the things that we saw in that other instance.
Thank you for clarifying that. It's good for all of us to know, and it offers a glimmer of hope.
Yeah.
We appreciate your answers today for our state questions and our national ones.
What a pleasure.
Thank you so
Have
much.
me back anytime.
Say less, and thanks for watching.